So, hey, Jessica, I'm super excited you're here. I was just talking to her before we hopped on, and I'm really excited to one, dig in, but also hear a little bit about Scotland, hopefully, selfishly. Um, and yeah, so I would just love it if you share your story with us. Tell us where you're calling from, like what brought you to Scotland even, what lo life looks like. But yeah, so if you want to just start like tell us a little bit about who you are, where you are right now, and then where you began, and kind of just bring us along the journey with you. I will ask you questions along the way, and yeah.
Cool. Okay. Hi, I'm Jess. I'm currently calling from Scotland, which has
Which
been
I
very
love.
here. Yeah, it's been very fun. So I've been here like large chunks of this year, and the end of last year. My partner, he is in a master's program at St. Andrews. So, I was like, had the job freedom to come join him. So that's why I'm here. It's been lovely. Like I was worried about it from a client standpoint. Like, will it be a problem working with people, especially because most of my clients are in LA. That's where we
Mhm.
were before. But if anything, like it lets me get things in like way before the deadline of when I say I'm gonna get it to them because end of day my day is like 9 a.m. their time. So if anything, it makes me look great. Um, so that's lovely. And yeah, I was in LA before this. We were in LA for like 8 years. So that's after college. That's where I went. And I was an actor out there. And then the pandemic made it so now everything is a self-tape. So I still act, but I can do that from here as well. So yeah, yes, actors. Yeah, so that's a large reason why I initially signed up for Write Your Way to Freedom, needed to job pivot because I was very sick and tired of doing like flexible jobs that you hated just so you could take an audition or take a booking or something like that. I had like a string of bad bosses, and right before this, I was managing the billing team at a law firm. So like very different, but I had written before previously. So I had a decent background in it, but not copywriting at all. So I found Write Your Way to Freedom. I like signed up. I found my first client and I quit my job. I was like, no more. So yeah. And it's been like I'm so thankful every day that I left that job because I'm like, I could easily go to Scotland and do this, and like my life looks so different than it did 2 years ago. So,
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it sounds like a lot happened.
a
I have
lot.
questions. So it's so funny. So I live in LA. I can't
Yeah.
tell you the number of times I've like talked to I'm like talking to actors and they're, because they're like often like getting serving jobs and things like that. And I'm like, dude, be a copywriter.
Yeah.
Like it's
Never. I
so
was not
flexible.
interested. Yeah.
I'm like, it's like the perfect thing to like pair with whatever you're doing. Like, because I know being an actor creates just like a super hectic like schedule. Like it's
Yes.
projects that come and go. It's all over the place. So trying to have like an additional side hustle on top of acting is just so difficult. Got quite a few friends in the industry. So
Yeah. Very
yeah.
difficult, like next to impossible. And especially like if you want to like enjoy life too, it's just so hard if you have a job you hate that's like just flexible. I also found like bosses would take advantage of that too. Like my boss would always be like, well, I'm flexible with you. So therefore you have to do XYZ. And it's just like, it's so much better to work for yourself.
Yeah, totally. It is. It's like, I don't know, when you have to, any type of job where you have to like piece things together, I feel like copywriting fits in nicely. Also because you get to choose who you write for. Like, who are you writing for? What are your clients?
So my most favorite client, they are like big voiceover studio in LA, but they do like lots of remote classes. So I write for them. I have a client who's in the finance space. They have like a card for an interest-free card for women. Like it pays you back in like beauty and like that kind of thing. So yeah, those are my two main retainer clients right now. I was just working with a restaurant group, so I am like really bouncing around. And I had a very exciting interview tomorrow, so yesterday. So if that pans out, that'd be very
That's
cool.
awesome. Wait, I
Yeah.
love that. I love that you get to do, obviously, I recommend like a niche or whatever for focus and stuff. But you really don't have to have a niche. And when you can figure out how to like make it work and you just have clients you love, that's really like that's the best.
Yeah.
The voiceover group is interesting. That's like a whole world I've learned about through Write Your Way to Freedom students, actually. It's like a
Oh,
whole
really?
I didn't even know existed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. And like they have such a cool brand voice. And they were a referral from my first ever client. So they're like the most fun to work for. She's an actor as well. So like we can chat about that and everything too. So it's like it's a lot of fun and like it lets me, I get to write for them. They have such a fun brand voice. And then I get to like learn that side of things too, which I'm like helpful for acting as well. So it's great.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I feel like it's a good pairing with your like acting world, right? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, it's a very good pairing. And like I think I also can speak to their audience so well because I am their ideal client. Like that, I always find that like to be the
That-
easiest to write
It's
for when
true.
like you are. Yeah.
You're like, yeah, it's me. I am the
Yeah.
client.
I just write to myself, what are my pain points? Let me see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So actually, if you don't mind, do you have any other thoughts that you'd like to add just for other people in the like film industry who come in? Because that's a common group of people in the Write Your Way to Freedom community is people who come in from the film industry. And people will ask me, like, can I have a niche in the film industry? And it is an industry I like don't know a ton about. So do you have any like advice or thoughts specifically for the for people coming in who are actors or otherwise?
Yeah, I think that like write what you know thing is true to a certain extent. So like I do find it easier when I'm writing to myself. So I think like if there's an area of the industry, even if it's like if you're an actor, but it's like voiceover or something else, like I wrote for like a mindset coach who worked for actors, like
Mm,
anything kind of tangentially related. One is like amazing for just building your network in general. And then two, it tends to be more fun to write for because you come in with a lot of knowledge that like another copywriter won't have. So it's like much easier for you to give strategy and all that stuff as well. Um, but also change it up and don't just do that. Like I do have a niche, even though things feel very, typically write for creative entrepreneurs. And like I will go elsewhere, but that's kind of like my broader umbrella. And I think that makes it fun to some of it is very related, but then also not staying too inside the industry. Like I think that that's something I did for a very long time was like, I'm an actor, I'm just an actor. I can't do anything else. And like as soon as I really embraced like, no, I have my own business and I'm a copywriter and I'm also an actor, it started to life started to feel better. So I think also like the industry has changed so much from when I first moved to LA. Like it's just not the same. And so like you have to kind of also build a life and a career around it, I think
mm,
just naturally now.
totally. I mean, the people that I am friends with who are in the industry have done that. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? Brings more confidence. It looks like got other things going on. I think, and that like just speaks volumes, I think. We just have a comment about in talks with a client who's a Broadway career coach. Yeah, I'd love, can you spitball a few like ideas in this industry? Like, because you mentioned a mindset coach, you've
Yep.
mentioned a voiceover group. I would love to just like hear and learn more myself
I
about
think
who needs
coaches are
coaching.
great. Yeah, I
Okay.
think
Yep.
coaches are great because or anywhere that's like doing classes as well, right? Because they're actively always trying to fill their classes. So I think like that is like a Broadway career coach is amazing. Like a career coach, a mindset coach for actors, like so many actors or industry people need to now branch beyond. So I think there's a lot of coaches who are making that their niche is like helping people in the industry get full careers that support it.
Hmm.
Um, I think like voiceover is great. I think if you know if you're an actor working with like directors or like so many people have their own companies at this point too. Production companies, like all of that stuff, especially if you don't just, work B2B or something like that too. Like companies, everyone needs, emails or website copy. Um, so kind of just reach out to the people who light you up a little.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. I mean, for me too, because man, it's a question I get, and I'm like, this is just not an industry I'm that familiar with. There's so much to know. There's so many. That's actually something that cracks me up about the film industry is I'll meet someone and they're like, I find locations. Like
Yeah.
my job
Oh,
is, I'm like,
like such
that's a
specific
job?
jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, such specific jobs. I have a friend who's a costume designer and like she does trailer. That's different than the costume designer that's doing set. Like it's like there are so many
So
different.
many
Yeah.
specific jobs that I like you would just my imagination could have never come up with. So,
Yeah.
um, so tell us about, I would love to hear a little bit about quitting your job and how that felt. Because you said you did it after you got your first client. You were just like, I'm out.
Yes, I did.
What
I
was
was
that about? What would that feel like?
so it's really funny because I had a mindset coach, and like an acting mindset coach, and because I really needed help to quit my job. I grew up in like a, corporate work as hard as you can, a paycheck is a paycheck family. Like that was just so me being an actor in general was
I know, I was gonna
already.
say you're already an actor though, where they're just
Yeah, that already was like big and outside the box. And then when I wanted to like, because I went to school, like got a business degree and a film degree, but the business degree was required. And like I so I was able to have jobs that weren't just like waitressing or doing something like that. So that was really good, but it was almost one of those like be grateful that you have that, even if it's destroying your soul type of thing. And it was really hard to explain to parents or people like, it's like, I literally was like, it is sucking my soul. And my dad means well, but he was just like, yeah, it's a job and that's what jobs are. And he's like, just like, work is work. And I was just like, no. So, I mean, it was not a great work environment that I was in. I think there were like 3 or 4 of us in a 9-person office that quit in like a month.
so it's nice
So
of you.
it was not just me, and it was all like really coming to a head. But yeah, I did like have a mindset coach at the time who helped me kind of realize that it was just like just not good for me. There's something else out there. What other skills do I have type of thing? And she became my first client because then I told her, I was like, I figured it out. I'm gonna be a copywriter. And she was like, wait, I need a copywriter. So that ended up being an amazing like first client. Um, yeah. And I just after that I was like, it was not enough to cover my rent in LA, but I was just like, okay, it's possible.
Hmm.
So I'm out.
Well, that's the thing. First, it's like one, we need the proof. And once we have the proof, you just have to keep doing it over and over again. Like that's why I'm always saying like your first $1,000 is the hardest to make
Yeah.
because that's where you have to do all the work on the front end to understand the skill, to do the client acquisition, everything. But then once you do it, it's like you just need to rinse and repeat and keep going, you know? And
Yeah.
so I love that. And I'm really glad I asked you that question because for some people quitting their job is like easy and but having like family to push back on is really, really hard. And I know other people experience that. And I think it's also just like their generation, like work was work. It was
And
hard.
it is in like this type of like the online businesses that exist now, they did not exist. Like you
Mhm.
could not just be like, I'm gonna sit in a coffee shop with my laptop and make $10,000 a month. Like you couldn't do that. So I think it's really hard for parents or other generations to believe you can. And I think sometimes it's even hard for us, or it was for me, of like getting out of that belief that it has to be X way and like proving that it can be something else.
No, 100%. And I think that it's so nice to hear you speak to that because it's funny how our, older generations like beliefs get on us. And if we're not constantly pushing ourselves to like look around and notice how the world has changed,
Yeah.
we can get stuck. I'm always thinking about this for my own kids, right? I'm like, okay, I need to make sure I stay open-minded to like whatever's going to happen. Like, what is our version of that going to be, right?
Yeah. And it
Like,
will be something for
yeah, there
sure.
will be
Yeah.
something where I think I know what's best, but I have to realize that the world has like completely changed and it's all
Yeah.
happening so fast. So it's just gotta stay up on it.
Yeah.
So, well, I would love to hear a little bit about, I know you recently had your biggest month and you're planning on hiring a junior copywriter. If you want to chat with us a little bit about that,
Yeah.
what that's felt like. Yeah.
It's felt cool, hard, and easy at the same time. I don't know. Like
Cool, hard and easy at the same time. I love it.
I feel like it is. I mean, I'm like almost a broken record, but I like for me at least, growth is so much about mindset for me. Like as soon as I get over something, which is sometimes a lot of work to get yourself past that belief or whatever, like then I'm like, oh, that was actually really easy to get that client. Like I just was like, I'm gonna start offering email and like back end services. Like I'm just gonna like pitch, and I pitched this client like, and I was like, I yeah, like I have one slot open and somebody else is really interested in whatever. And like it wasn't untrue, but it also wasn't like they were gonna let me know the next day. And I just like pitched it with like very blind confidence and like signed my biggest retainer, easily did the back end. Like it's like you can learn, once you know that stuff. And so it was also like once I just was like, I'm just gonna do it. Like I'm just gonna pretend like I have all the confidence in the world. That came very quickly. So I think that's kind of fascinating. But it was like a hard slog of like, why isn't it working? Why isn't it working? And then as soon as I was just like got out of my own way, that came pretty quickly, which was very nice. And I did hire a junior copywriter to help me with a blog client, because I don't want to write blogs anymore.
Yeah.
So I was like, I could use help here. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot that you said that was packed in there. And this is something, again, that I think that a lot of times older generations are just so far behind on because they were like, it was ingrained in them that you needed to have 10 years of experience and like a PhD before you were ever like able to do anything. And it's just
Yeah.
like the world is changing so fast. In fact, when I hear somebody's like gone to school for marketing, like proper, like college or like, even further, I'm just like, how outdated is the information going to be when
Yeah.
you get out of that like
Yeah.
little bubble you're in? Because it's changing so fast. And so just the realization that there are so many resources to be able to say, like, I'm going to learn the back end stuff, I'm going to do it. And when you know that you know how to figure it out and find what you need in order to do it, it just makes you get so much better. And honestly, in a much more effective way, I think, than studying in a bubble and not actually like implementing it in the real world. Um, and it's far, far, far more effective. So I like love to hear that you did that. And it's something I'm trying to impress upon people in this community all the time because you have the resources. You have the resources in
Yeah.
this community. you have the like you could reach out and be like, where can I learn this? How can I do it? And that's how I did it all along the way. That's how I did white papers, you know? It's like I'd never written a white paper before, so I hired somebody to like look at my white paper and give me feedback, an expert white paper person. And I knew that was going to be a much more effective and faster way for me to master that craft than, I don't know, taking like a
Yeah.
course on it and just ideating about it for forever, which is again just something that I think is an old school mindset. So I really love that you touch on that. Obviously, I'm sorry, I'm gonna get off my soapbox now, but it's just like I
No, no.
want everybody to like know that because that's how you grow fast. That's how you grow
Yeah.
fast, and that's how you get really good fast.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's even like, even the trust of like, if I don't know and I can't figure it out, right, I can hire somebody who's done it before to help show me how, or I can find the right course and like implement as I go. Cause like that's the other thing of like, when you learn and can put it into practice right away, it's like that's going to take you so much farther than just like watching a video and being like, cool, that was cool. And then you forget it if you're not like practicing it. So it also kind of helps steer you in like the direction of like, what is the right next learning move type of
Yeah,
thing.
totally. Totally. It's like because if you're not implementing as you go, you just lose it. And it's like
Yeah.
it's the difference between something being conceptual and something being concrete. Like you actually know. So it's funny, it's like I'm looking at the post we wrote about your student success story. You were planning on hiring a junior copywriter. You hired a junior, but you went ahead and hired a junior copywriter. You're on your way to your first 10K month, it seems like. Does that still look like it's gonna happen?
Yeah, it's still gonna happen. I am like,
Getting
I'm
close.
also, well, I'm getting close, but I'm also like, I feel like that's been like a number in my head for so long that it almost feels like thinking too small now, and that's
Ah!
why I'm not hitting it. I know that that's like a weird thing to say.
No, it's not a weird thing to say. It makes me so happy to hear you say that.
I'm just like stuck. I'm like stuck at this thing, and I'm like, I think it's just because that's not really the right number to try to hit anymore. Like it's again, I think it's just like a mindset block because a couple months ago I was like, why am I so far from it? And I was like, okay, maybe 10 for some reason is just scary because it's double digit. You know, I was like, maybe that's just scary. So what if I just say like 8? And like within like a couple weeks, I was on track to make 8 for that month. And I was like, oh, it's just, I'm like weirdly scared of that number. And like now that I've hit, more than that, I'm like, okay, now I think 10 is still sticking of like, it needs to be higher to hit
Yeah.
10. I don't know, I don't know.
No,
It's very
I actually totally get this, and this is a thing. It's because it's it really is it really does all come down to like mindset stuff, right? And the idea and the pressure and like what something means to us. And for me, every step of the way, what I've realized is that I feel like mindset work is kind of all the same. Like it's like you have the like financial hurdle that you're like, okay, I want to hit this number, I want to hit this number, and it's a big deal in your mind. And then once you cross it, you're like, wait a minute, that's it? Like I did it, and it was just doing the same thing that you were doing before, but like pushing to that next level. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited because I think, and then you cross the threshold and you're like, oh, it's just more of the same type of mindset work, showing up, leveling up in your skills, and it just keeps happening like that.
yeah. And I think that is the thing of like, you do have to keep leveling up in your skills. And like it maybe took me a little while to like realize that too, of like, oh, well, if I want to offer this or I want it to be easier in this, like I might need to learn something else. So that like
Mhm.
forever learner thing I think is helpful too.
Yeah, totally. So how many clients, because we got a few questions, how many clients did it take you to come into the 10K range?
Um, I think I had 4 clients, but 2 of them were like from early stages, so they were fairly low retainers. So it was like kind of thanks to
Two,
2 new
two
clients.
big clients. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And what is your secret hourly rate if you even know that anymore? I feel like once you get to this point, you're not like tracking as much, but maybe the better question might be like about how many hours are you working a week?
Well, I'm not always the best at policing myself. So sometimes I still work a lot and I realize that that is a me thing. Not a old
Your work,
boss's.
it's okay though, you know?
And exactly, I'm like, that's okay. But I think I am finally starting to prioritize my own business as work as well. So in terms of like client work, I'm probably working like 25 hours a week, maybe on client work.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Nice. That's amazing. And what is it that you're mostly offering? I think you said, especially
Mostly
let's talk
email.
maybe those two big clients. Yeah, mostly
Yeah,
email.
mostly email. So those two big clients, one was email with the design implementation strategy. I pretty much always offer strategy now just because I'm very good at it naturally. And so I'm just like, why not? And also I know I'm gonna do it. So I just
Mhm.
like include it in my retainers because I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to not do it. So I just started
Mhm.
including it. And implementation. So like segmenting and helping them get stuff set up. Um, and
Yeah.
then the other one was just the copy only. But they also like have a new website launch and like they ended up having me do their whole website and like so like they've added stuff on throughout.
Yeah. Let's talk about email strategy because this is a thing. This is really common in the copywriting journey is you to get to higher levels, you'll usually, not always, but you usually want to offer strategy. And at that point in time, when you're starting to offer it, you have a really good understanding of it. So let's talk a little bit about like what that looks like for you or how you implement that. And I can jump
Yeah.
into, but
Yeah. It's something I'm still learning. I just signed up for another course because I was like, I did it once and it worked really well, but I'm sure I can do it faster and I'm sure I could do it better. Um, but yeah, definitely helping them plan out kind of their content calendar and like what launches or stuff they're like
yeah.
looking for. Yeah. And also like suggesting things when things are starting to not work. Like one of my clients was like, this sales sequences just weren't doing as well. And I was like, we need to nurture. So like, let's incorporate more of that. And then we switched up the strategy for a couple of weeks. And then the next sales sequence, I think it's the class sold out in 2 emails or something. So like learning that way too of like what works. And yeah, building out the strategy of like how the emails are going to flow, how they are going to work throughout the month, what you're going to put out throughout the month. Um, and then like A/B testing if necessary, or like keeping an eye on the stats and that kind of stuff. Like how are this everything performing?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and add a little bit because with email specifically, email is my favorite, one of my favorites, because you get pretty like instant feedback, right? So just to get into the nitty-gritty a little bit to answer the question, like you get open rates, so you know how many people opened it, and then you get click-through rates, so you know how many people actually clicked the link, and unsubscribe rates. So like pretty quickly you get some really helpful information anytime you send out an email. And it's just testing, like sending out more emails, seeing which ones did better, comparing them, contrasting them, incorporating that into what you're going to do in the future. So, yeah, I love that. I love emails. They're my favorite.
And then my favorite.
Yeah. And then yeah, so I guess I would love if you want to share, is there anything else? I don't know, like you've touched on the fact that you've been able to move to Scotland, and is there just anything else in the like non-monetary like successes or just things that you feel like you've overcome in this journey that maybe you didn't expect or you're just really happy to have experienced?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think like my life would not look at all like it does now if I had stayed at my job. Like, I met my partner soon after I quit that job. Like, I think I changed the way I was like, my life is going to be different. We're going to change things. And I think it really has allowed me to like shift. And when he got into school in Scotland, it was not ever a discussion of like, could I work there? It was like, do I want to? And that's a lot of freedom right there too. And like this summer, we're gonna go back to the East Coast for like 2 months and like we can do that. And I think like that's really great. And then it has helped me with acting so much as well because it's like I set my schedule. I, can do all that. Um, I think another thing is like not doing it yourself either. Like when I got here, so I've done some like copy editing for some of the Write Your Way to Freedom students, and two of them who I knew they live abroad. And I was like, I'm here. Does anyone want to do, accountability or anything? And like we've met up, the three of us, twice a week for like months at this point. And like I think that made working here or living here much easier, like having kind of community. And I think like that it's harder to do when it's just you thinking in your own head. And like when you have other people to bounce ideas off of or be like, that income goal is not crazy, or like that client is being crazy. Like that's really helpful. So yeah, I think that too is like a win. I like the community.
Uh, I love that so much.
Yeah.
That like that makes my heart so happy. I love our community so much. Oh, so I would love to kind of wrap up with if you could go back in time and like have a little chit chat with yourself at the beginning of this journey and just what would you say to yourself? Like right at the beginning when the like doubt and the fear and the quitting your job is at its like peak stress levels.
Ooh.
Yeah, what would you tell yourself?
Um, I think to trust yourself, to trust myself at every new stage, because I think like I always have to remember again to trust myself. So I think like trust yourself for each big leap you take. And then also just like keep going. Because I do really think there is like something to be said for consistency over just like scrambling and trying to, because like one of my things that I've faced is like, okay, when a retainer does end, then like, what do you do? And so like, I think I would tell myself then what I know now, like be consistent and like have your own email list or be on socials or connect with people throughout, like even when things are going well, so that like if something ends, it's supposed to end. They don't last forever. That's okay. But like having something going, on the back end too.
This is huge. All of that was so important. And so I'm really glad you said that because it's an ongoing process and it's something that takes some getting used to, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so well, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story. It's amazing. And I'm gonna come to Scotland soon.
Yeah, do it. Do it. Come in the summer because you'll get so much daylight.
Yeah, I like Scotland is like high on the list. So I love what you're doing. I love how you're creating like you're literally creating like a life that fits you. And that makes me so happy. So thank you for sharing how you've made this work, how you've made this work for you, and how you've kind of just made it fit who you are. I think it's amazing. So
Yeah, thank you. It's been a fun year and it's been fun proving to myself that I can do that. It's really cool.
and maybe to family.
I, and to family. Oh yeah, by the way, guys, my dad is now like, my daughter has her own company and she's thriving. Like he's happy with it now.
Yes. I love when that happens. Same
Yeah.
thing happened with me. They were like, "You're crazy. What are you doing?" And now they're like, "Oh, my daughter." Yeah.
Yeah, they're like,
Yes.
oh, this is great. Yeah.
Yeah. That is a really good feeling right there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so, so much. I
Yes,
really
thank you so
appreciate
much.
you, and it's been such a delight. So we'll see you guys all in the community. Thank you. Thank you. All right,
Bye.
bye.
Thank you.